And the first email today comes to us from Oliver M., who writes, "Hey, John, I went to see Glass the other night, and I really wanted to know what you thought about it. I went in expecting something great, and I really felt like it didn't deliver. I'm not saying I thought it was awful, but I left with an overwhelming sense of meh. Am I crazy?" All right, thanks a lot for the email, Oliver. And yes, I also went out to see Glass. I went to go see it last night. Me and Ann were really looking forward to it. It wasn't in my top 20 most anticipated films of 2019, but it did get an honorable mention because I have been excited about it. I have been looking forward to it. Ever since the trailer dropped at Comic-Con, I thought it looked like they were going in the right direction and all that kind of stuff. So I go in and watch Glass. Horribly disappointed with it. I just got to be straight up honest with you guys. I was horribly disappointed with it. And I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell you what I wrote on Twitter. Because what I wrote on Twitter really does sum up my feelings on the film, all right? Here's what I wrote on Twitter. Glass. A wasted opportunity of a movie that tries to shamelessly pander to an audience that it clearly doesn't understand. Flashes of excellence that never materialize into anything more than fleeting. But it's the first part of my tweet that really sums up my overall annoyance with Glass. You could tell they're pathetically trying to pander to a comic book movie audience, while at the same time you can clearly tell they do not understand the comic book movie audience. Like M. Night, I guess, who's been on a streak lately. Look, if you haven't seen The Visit, it's a good little movie. The Visit's a good, solid little movie. You should check it out. A lot of people avoided it because it was a small little film and it had M. Night directing it and nobody wanted to have anything to do with it. I saw it. It's a good little movie. And then he followed up The Visit with Split, another good, solid little movie. He's been on a roll. And I thought we were getting ready to emerge into the Shamhammer renaissance, you know? When I was ready for it. The return of the Shamhammer, man, I was ready for it. And I go into and that's all it was. The whole movie. First of all, let me say it starts really well. Glass starts really well. The first 10 to 15 minutes of Glass, really sharp. The first 10 to 15 minutes to me represent what I was hoping for in the movie, right? It really represented what I was hoping for. But then a couple of the problems start to become obvious and they really start to hit you in the head. Problem number one, this movie has a severe pacing problem. It has a severe pacing problem. Like, you can have a movie that's slow, and a slow movie still can feel like it has a definite pace to it, a cadence in which it moves from point A to point B to point C, right? Even if it slowly does it, you can still sense that pace to it. A lot of great slow movies that still have pace to it. This movie, after the first 10 or 15 minutes, it hits this point where it introduces this concept. And then they revisit the concept. And then they revisit the concept. And they revisit the concept. And they never move from point B to point C for a good 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes. And you see a lot in the trailer of that in the movie you have this psychiatrist who obviously believes that Glass and Dunn and the Beast are all just basically, it's just really all in their heads. They all have a mental issue that she's going to try to solve them with, right? And she's proposing to them, no, this is all in your guys' heads. And then they go back to another scene where it's her explaining to them, this is all in your heads. Then they go back to another scene of her explaining to them, this is all in your heads. And it just kind of meanders there without any progress actually happening in the film. And that was a major issue in it because it drags and drags and drags and you're like, ugh. But that brings up the biggest problem of the film to me. There is no subtlety in this movie. And what M. Night and the filmmakers of the film try to do is try to pathetically and shamelessly pander to comic book movie audiences because that's all they ever talk about in the movie. well, in comic books this, and in comic books that, and the villain is this, and the hero is that, and blah, blah, blah. It's like they're massively trying to pander to this comic book movie audience saying, see, kiddies, we know the jive talk. We know what's hip. Look at us. We're talking your language. The problem is they don't understand this audience at all, so why they think they're talking their language, they're really not. And all I could think of as a big comic book movie fan was, this thing is just desperately trying to pander to me, but clearly doesn't get me, like an overaged DJ trying to sell me music that he thinks I think is cool and hip, but is just nowhere near the bar. And that's what I got out of Glass over and over and over again. Desperate pandering without actually understanding its audience whatsoever. And then you run into the secondary problem compiles on top of that with real pacing and slow. Now, I'll say this, a lot of people are bagging on the ending of Glass. I'll be honest with you, as somebody who did not like the film, I didn't think the ending of Glass was all that bad. It was a bold, what they were going for and what they did in the end, I'm not going to reveal what it is here. What they were going for near the end of Glass was, I actually thought, pretty bold. Pretty audacious and pretty bold. It didn't execute great, but I got what M. Night was going for in his ending, and quite frankly, I thought it was the most interesting thing he at least tried to do. I'm not going to say it worked, but to me, the ending of Glass was the most interesting thing that he tried to do. If at some point they at least tried to introduce some things subtly, and they weren't constantly hitting over the head, we're about comic books. You think you're a comic book. You think you're super. If I had a nickel for every time they said the word superhero in this movie, I would be a rich man today. And it just misses the mark. Not to mention the central character, Glass, front and center in the images, right? He doesn't have his first line of dialogue till like halfway through the film. Now, I understand why, and when you see the movie, you'll understand why too, but you're calling the movie Glass. You're putting Samuel L. Jackson front and center. Maybe you might want to do something with that. Now, as far as the performances in the movie go, I'll say this. James McAvoy, stupid. Just stupid good. Ridiculously good. Like almost not fair good. I think he even ups what he did in this movie. I think might even outshine what he did in Split. It's so good. I can't remember the last time I saw, and I'm sure I have, but I am just saying off the top of my head, I cannot remember the last time I saw a movie that I disliked to this degree, but a particular performance in the movie just blew my mind. James McAvoy does that. Samuel L. Jackson brings Samuel L. Jackson. He delivers. Obviously, you're never disappointed when he's on screen other than he was given crap dialogue to talk about. Bruce Willis, this could be total hyperbole, but I remember I came out of the theater with Ann last night. I said, did Bruce Willis even have 10 lines in this movie? And seriously, did he? Now, maybe if you sat down and counted them, actually, John, he had 23 lines. Okay, maybe he did. I'm just saying, when I came out of the movie, I turned to my wife, I'm like, did Bruce Willis even have 10 lines? Because I'll tell you what, it doesn't feel like he did. It doesn't feel like he did. And that's not his fault at all. I'm just, So, I got to tell you, look, is Glass a total waste garbage of a movie? No. There's some interesting things they try. The first 10 to 15 minutes are what we were hoping for. I thought they tried some bold things at the ending of the film. There are good things. James McAvoy, tremendous performance. There are good things in there about Glass. But overall, as a complete package, as somebody who was looking forward to this film, I was tremendously disappointed by it. Tremendously disappointed by it. And I know there are a bunch of people out there who don't like it. I know, as all films should be, there are a bunch of people out there who do like it. It's balanced, as all things should be, as Thanos would say. But yeah, I can't help it, guys. Sorry, I can't recommend Glass. I would say go see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse again. Go watch Bumblebee again. There are a few other decent. Go see The Upside or something like that. But I would say, normally I would say, look, if you're really looking forward to it, go see it anyway. But if you're like me and you're really looking forward to it, I almost want to save you that pain and say, don't bother. But I don't know. Check it out for yourself and let me know what you think. That's my thoughts on Glass.